So as soon as Chris gets the link established here, I'm just going to go on. Well, good evening, everyone joining in on Zoom. This is a bit of a different format on our meeting, as you've probably gathered. And so the second half of our meeting, we have just completed our AGM, which was only open to RASC members. The second half of the meeting is open to everybody. And so we have just adjourned for our break. We will still be about a few minutes until we start the meeting proper. So take a stretch, grab a coffee, and come back in about 5 or 6 minutes, and we will start the second half of their meeting officially. Thank you.
If I could see Peter Hutchison, please.
Okay. Is he here? Okay. Okay. All right. Right here. How much they paid for that? Okay, that's their cue. All right, folks, if I could have you take your seats, please. We will resume with the second half of our meeting. All right. I'm going to turn the second half of the meeting over to Jonathan King, my trusty co-pilot. I just first wanted to make an announcement. Peter Hutchinson, could you see Dave Chisholm at the end of the meeting? Please, thank you. All right. Jonathan King.
Thank you, Paul. And I just found this podium goes up and down, so that's fantastic, because Paul's about a foot taller than me. So, all right, welcome everyone to the open session of our December meeting for the Ottawa Centre of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And we are recording this webinar for posterity, and it's available at our website at ottawa.rasc.ca. For those of you who are joining us online, we ask that, oops, let's go back here. Very sensitive button. We ask that you use the Q&A to ask any questions to the speaker. Chat box comments will be seen by all, and raise your hand is disabled. Tonight's program, new members in the news. Then we'll be, unfortunately, we have a couple of obituaries tonight, and Rob will come up and speak to that. Dave Chisholm will present Ottawa Skies for December. We've got a couple presentations, Chetna Misra, History of Light Pollution, short break, and then myself, I'll be introducing one of our new segments, Frontiers of Astronomy. We'll have our observation report for the month. Richard Taylor will do the monthly observing challenges, and then we'll wrap up with any announcements. Welcome new members for November. We have quite a few. We've had 106 new members in 2025, which is fantastic. And this month, we have Martin Bender, Douglas Letnips, Benjamin Janssen, Yana Elias, Charlotte Petrick, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing these correctly, Chris Rainier, Megan Harding, Michael Petrick, Sashank Vadrevu, Thomas Cavanaugh, and Stanley Smallman. Are any of our new members for November here tonight? Yell out if you are. Hey, right on. Welcome. We're looking forward to having you here for a very long time. Oops. This button is really twitchy, this one. All right. Members in the news. Taras Rabarski. Taras is Mr. December. If you have the astronomy calendar from the RASC for this month, Taras has a beautiful picture in there for the month of December. I'm not sure if it's on the next slide. Yes, it is. Look at that. As Paul mentioned earlier, Taras hops in his car and drives to all sorts of places around the continent into the United States in his efforts to get some of the best pictures we've seen in a long time of some of the planets, and one of the ones he took was of Jupiter, a beautiful picture, which we see here in this month's astronomy calendar. For those of you who would like to purchase a calendar for 2026, we do have a number of them available, I think. Oh, they're sold out. They went like hotcakes on the way in. Okay, so do we have any more at all or not? Yeah, they're popular items. Okay. They can be ordered from our national office. So. So if there is some interest in a 2026 calendar, please don't be afraid to reach out to any of the members of council. Let us know, and we will help you find one. And they're $20. So Rob, if you want to come up here and speak to some of the sad news we have this month.
I like the sound of that. Well, John was a very dear friend of mine for over 55 years. And to put everything in perspective, friendships mold us from what we were into what we will become. My life changed direction when I joined the RAC back in 1969. The people I met, the discussions we had, literally redirected my perspective from a passive, myopic view into one of curiosity, science, and adventure. Some of these friends would become very famous, though most would not, but all were very important, especially on one's personal development. I met John in about 1970 as we both began our apprenticeship as meteor observers. The Ottawa Centre Meteor Program followed the rigor of the NRC professional program created by Dr. Peter Millman. Meteor observing taught us the visual techniques and knowledge that were required to move beyond being stargazers to being amateur astronomers. John joined the group by mistake. He had a similar name to an observer from the previous year and was invited by the meteor group to observe the Perseids in the late 1960s. But his lack of experience resulted in the group's discovery that there was a novice in their midst. What followed was his crash course on how to observe and report meteors. That encouragement and resulting friendships kept him in the group for over 55 years. During that time, he held a number of key observers group positions, including the editor of Astronauts, when scribbled articles arrived in the mail and a manual typewriter was the only technical convenience. Then there were the trips. The first was in 1972, a 6-week-long adventure in a van before vanning was a thing. There were initially 4 of us to reduce the personal cost of gas. We drove across Canada to the General Assembly in Vancouver, where we picked up another traveler. Then we headed south, with many stops at professional observatories and major geological and tourist sites along the way. John filmed and edited the Super 8 film of this trip and called it Star Truck, and was when we showed it at the membership at the meeting, it was quite envious. The membership were quite envious. By the way, we're just out of being teenagers at the time, so it was quite a challenge to start this trip. A full life requires dabbling in other interests. As a private pilot, he flew his own plane, his beloved Cardinal, across North America. There was also fencing and scuba diving. He was my buddy on many dives, and his patient, methodical approach probably saved my bacon several times. We also took trips to solar eclipses across North America and into the Caribbean. Although his university degree was in science, his profession came from a computer programming diploma he got from Algonquin College. And he applied this to develop satellite control software and the air traffic controller training system for NAV Canada. Now it's a press the green button. Yes. But of lasting value to the Centre are the recordings of Centre meetings and member activities. He recorded and edited the presentations from numerous professional astronomers who visited the Hertzberg Institute of Astrophysics. For example, Carolyn Eugene Shoemaker, Halton Narp, Alan Hildebrand, Wendy Vriedman, Alan Guth, David Schramm, and many, many others. He also compiled video and stills to preserve the history of our North Mountain Observatory and its relocation to Indian River Observatory. And most of these videos were donated to our Centre library. Most recent members may recall his animated works at the Ottawa General Assembly in 2017. We thank John for all his contributions to our Centre and for those who knew him, his friendship. Now, he died about a week ago after a very long illness with congestive heart failure. And another fellow of the group who was really helpful for the last 6 years and helping John do things and so on was Kevin Curry. And we just found out today that he just died in hospital as well. 5 years John's junior. Now, Kevin and John met at NAV Canada. They're both programmers and worked on the same project. And Kevin was very keen on software and was even taking courses at Algonquin College to increase his knowledge in security systems and so on. He he gave me a call of about 3 weeks ago from his house in Maxville, said he needed a bit of a boost to get out of his chair. And from there, he went 911 into hospital, and he never left the hospital. So some of you who've been here for many, many years will remember sort of 3 people sitting at the top center at the back, and now 2 of them are gone. So normally things come in threes, so be careful on your way home. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Just a quick correction on the calendars. They are available directly through our national office. If you are interested, you can Google Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. It should be available there. There is additional charges for shipping and stuff like that. All right, on to our next section of the program tonight. Dave's going to come up and speak to Ottawa skies for December. Thank you, Dave.
Whoa, a little bit of static there. Okay, let's see what's happening in December. First of all, the moon phases. It's always a challenge when you've got something exciting happening the day before the meeting. So it's a haha, you missed the full moon yesterday. It's the last of the 3 super moons. This moon was known by the indigenous tribes as the cold moon or the long night's moon. And we have a new moon on the 20th. We have the Geminid meteor showers coming up on the 13th and 14th. But if we just go back to the previous slide here, 13th, 14th, we've got the second quarter moon, so it won't be great viewing. So these showers were left behind by debris by an asteroid known as 3200 Pantheon, which was discovered in 1982. And it's about 120 meteors per hour, so it's one of the bigger ones. We also have the Ursiad meteor showers, a much smaller one on December 21st and 22nd, but the moon will not be in our way for that one as much, about 5 to 10 meteors per hour. And because our next meeting is going to be after the Quantrids meteor shower, which is January 3rd and 4th, this is coming up then. Again, it's a minor meteor shower, up to 40 per hour. In terms of the sunrise and sunset, we get the shortest day of the year on December the 21st, and then the days start to lengthen. Mercury has its greatest western elongation. That means it's furthest away from the sun. You can see it in the sky just before sunrise, so it's above the horizon. Venus is rising. Venus and Mars are both rising and setting with the sun this month, so they're not really visible. Jupiter is visible in the evening all through the month. Saturn's visible in the evening as well. Uranus is visible in the evening and through the night, and Neptune is visible in the evening. And there is our cartoon of the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. The cartoon's going to lead into something I'm going to talk about in a little bit, so I appreciate that one. All right, our next speaker this evening is Chetna Misra, who's going to be doing a presentation for us on the history of light pollution. So Chetna, if you want to come on down, the podium's all yours. You know how to work this. Create some more backward. If you want it lower. Yes. That's right. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. This presentation isn't about history of artificial lighting and how and when it was invented itself. It's about the story of how human habits around lighting have evolved over centuries, shaped not just by science, but by culture, society, and commerce. How these choices, made long before we considered their wider impact, have gradually brightened our nights and altered the natural rhythm of the world around us. To explore this story, we'll move century by century, looking at what light looked like in each era, what shaped its hues, and how each period set the stage for the next one. The events and examples you'll see today are ones I have intentionally selected. While many other factors influence the evolution of artificial light, I have focused on the key milestones that fit within the time we have today. The first known artificial light, the rushlights, dating back to early medieval Europe, was the rushlights. Simple reeds soaked in animal fat. They were inexpensive and easy to make, but produced weak and smoky light. By the 1600s and early 1700s, tallow candles became more common, offering brighter illumination, yet still giving off soot and odor. Cleaner options such as beeswax and vegetable oil lamps were available only to those who could afford them at that time, leaving more households reliant on low-quality fuels that filled homes with smoke and poor air. Adding to the challenge, in 1696, the British government introduced the window tax, which effectively taxed access to daylights. Households with more windows paid higher taxes. This prompted many to brick up their windows to save money, as you can see on the slide, literally reducing natural light indoors. We can still see examples of this, like so, in Europe, many European cities, and also as windows were an aesthetic part of the architecture, you will also find buildings with painted windows on them. They can't be open, it's just a paint on the wall. So during this time, combined with the high cost of candles and oil, this policy deepened the reliance on cheap, smoky fuels like the rushlights. These decisions, driven by economic interests rather than public well-being, shaped lighting habits that reinforce control over comfort, over sustainability, setting an early precedent or how light would be managed for centuries to come. Moving into the 1700s, options evolved for people, allowing them to use different fuels for lighting based on affordability and what that it would cost them. Many households relied on tallow and lard, both made from animal fat, easy to obtain and were affordable to them. These fuels, however, produced, like I mentioned, dim and smoky light and an unpleasant odor. Those with greater access to resources used whale oil or spermaceti candles, which burned brighter and cleaner, but were expensive and harder to find. Beeswax was also a luxury due to its scarcity and high cost, making it accessible only to the wealthy. But in general, the trend was moving towards a cleaner and more efficient candle options. But as candle lighting became an essential part of daily life, industries began to scale up production for it to meet the growing demand. This led to widespread whaling and development of large animal fat processing operations, both of which caused significant environmental impact and harsh working conditions. But this wasn't really an issue, as environmental protection wasn't really a concern until the 20th century at the time. But something happened in 1709 that made this only source of artificial light to common man even more inaccessible than it already was. In 1709, the UK introduced the candle tax to fund their war of Spanish succession. A large portion of the population was pushed again to take up rushlights and other cheaper candles options instead of the cleaner options that were available. To create extra light, rushes were sometimes lit at both ends, like you can see in the photo. The origin of saying burning the candle at both ends. Although the war ended in 1714, the tax remained until 1831, keeping the price of candles high for ordinary households. That's right, approximately 120 years after the reason that was given to the public for the tax wasn't even valid anymore. Then, in the early 1800s, the introduction of gaslight marked a major turning point in the history of artificial light. The first recorded public gas street lighting was installed in Pall Mall in London in 1807 by inventor Frederick Albert Windsor. And you can see sketches here, which were made at that time and of that time. These early lamps transitioned from oil to coal gas, which is a byproduct of burning coal that could be piped through underground systems to feed multiple lamps at once. In 1813, gaslights illuminated many of London and other European major streets, replacing oil lamps and dramatically changing how cities functioned after dark. This innovation marked the birth of public lighting and the beginning of the modern urban night. For the first time, light became a part of a civic infrastructure, something managed, distributed, and maintained at a city scale. It transformed nightlife, safety, and commerce, but it also introduced the idea of the always-on city, where natural darkness gradually disappeared from public spaces. Then came the golden age of artificial lighting. Thomas Edison, which is said that he invented the practical incandescent lamp in 1879, transformed how people lived and worked. Incandescent lamp was not discovered by Edison, as many of you may know. Among other scientists, it was Humphrey Davy. But what Edison did was he made the incandescent lamp usable. He made the grid system and every component that helps you make it usable for us. What began as a luxury for factories and wealthy homes quickly spread as electricity networks expanded around the cities, turning light into a symbol of progress and modernity. For the first time, the night could be fully conquered. Streets, shops, and homes all glowed at the flick of a switch. Now, on this slide, you can see a few original advertisements by the leading lighting manufacturers of the time, like Philips, Osram, Tangram, and GE lamps. These early electric companies and bulb manufacturers, which you can see here, aggressively advertise electric lighting as a symbol of progress, cleanliness, and modern living, often exaggerating its safety and benefits over gas lamps. This messaging shaped public perception and lighting habits very early on. To live in the light was to be modern. Darkness became associated with poverty, danger, or backwardness. In just a few decades, artificial light evolved from a costly necessity to an emblem of progress, ushering in an era where brightness meant advancement and night was no longer allowed to fall naturally. This was also the moment the world unknowingly witnessed the birth of light pollution. But while the cities embraced electric lighting as a symbol of progress, something else was happening quietly behind the scenes, a story of profit shaping the very way we use light. In 1924, a group of major lighting manufacturers, including the General Electric, Philips, and Osram, which you saw previously at the other slide, formed what became called the Phoebus Cartel. Technology around this time could enable a light bulb to work for up to 2,000 to 2,500 hours. This cartel together agreed to form a regulatory body to limit the lifespan of light bulbs to just 1,000 hours, ensuring that consumers would buy replacements more often than not. It was the birth of a planned obsolescence, which is a business strategy which is illegal in a lot of countries, actually almost all countries and across all industries. It was a system that turned innovation into a cycle of waste and profit. What had begun as a marvel of human ingenuity was now engineered for consumption. The Phoebus Cartel collapsed in the late 1930s as the government investigations and rising public scrutiny and the onset of World War II made its coordinated practices impossible to sustain. Now, we may wonder what the actual lifespan of the bulb was supposed to be if it wasn't cut short by these oligarchs. Like I mentioned, there is info around suggesting it would have been around 2,000 to 2,500 hours. But here's an example of a theory that suggests it may have been much more than we can comprehend. This light bulb, which you see on the bottom left, made by the Shelby Electric Company in the 1890s and installed in a California fire station in 1901, has been glowing almost non-stop for more than 120 years. And you can even watch it on its live cam feed if you scan that code right now on your phone. The Centennial light, and I call it's been almost running continuously because it has been uninstalled and installed somewhere else. So only those periods of a few minutes have been a gap, otherwise it's been glowing. The Centennial light has quietly overlived every commercial bulb that followed it. It stands not just as a technical curiosity, but as a subtle rebellion against the forces that later shaped the lighting industry. It reminds us of a path not taken, one where efficiency and endurance mattered more than the planned replacement. Whether you see this as an engineering anomaly or a symbol of a forgotten design philosophy, the Centennial Light invites a provocative question. How different would our relationship with artificial light be today if longevity, rather than profit-driven replacement cycles, had remained the guiding principle? Now, coming back to our timelines, by the 20th century, the spread of electric light had reached every corner of urban life. Streets, homes, and monuments all gleamed through the night. The Vatican Observatory, one of the oldest astronomical institutions, began to struggle with the growing haze of city light from Rome. Once particularly placed in the heart of Rome, the observatory's instruments could no longer see the stars clearly. So by the 1930s, the glow of electric lamps had grown so intense that the Vatican was forced to relocate this observatory 25 kilometers away to Castel Gandolfo. This move marked more than a logistical shift. It was the first institutional acknowledgement that light itself had become a form of pollution. The sky was no longer dark. Light pollution was real. It was very much measurable and already changing how humanity looked at the universe. After the Phoebus cartel, the lighting industry became far more cautious, facing greater public scrutiny and tighter regulations that made blatant lifespan manipulations harder to hide. As the technology gradually improved, efficiency became the new goal. Fluorescent lights, first developed in the 1930s, offered a far more energy-efficient alternative to incandescent lamps. In the early 2000s, LED brought another revolution. They could now work for 10 to thousands of hours while using a fraction of the energy of previous technologies. This period also revealed a paradox known as the Jevons paradox. As lighting became more efficient and cheaper to operate, people simply used more of it. Instead of conserving energy, total light output and energy consumption continued to rise. Satellite images from 1990s and until now, 2020s, show a steady expansion of illuminated areas across the world. What began as a quiet efficiency ultimately reshaped our nights, replacing natural darkness with an ever-glowing artificial glow. As architectural light spread across homes, cities, it slowly reshaped our cultural understanding of the night. Light came to mean safety, progress, and control, while darkness was cast as something to avoid, a message reinforced by decades of advertising, public campaigns, and glow to ever-brighten cityscapes. Before long, constant illumination became the norm. The cities once slept began shining through the night. But the shift had consequences, of course, as we all know. Wildlife that depended on natural darkness lost their cues. Birds collided with lit buildings. Sea turtles crawled towards streetlights instead of the sea, and insect population declined under the glow of air glow, artificial light glow. Humans, too, felt the impact as excessive night lighting disrupted sleep and circadian rhythms. And above us, the stars faded. Today, most people can no longer see the Milky Way from where we live. And just as an example, this photo was taken on November 11th when we all saw auroras till the mid-latitudes, and that's from Orleans. That's the light pollution from the Hexo plant in Quebec. That's Ottawa River and the auroras above it. Over the past decade, a global counter-movement has emerged in different parts of the world, not to reject light, but to use it wisely. Here in North America, organizations like Dark Sky International and Royal Astronomical Society here are leading this effort to protect and restore the night. As a member of Light Pollution Abatement Committee here at RASC, I've seen the shift somewhat firsthand. It's not a trend, it's a practical, measurable movement changing how communities think about lighting. Through programs like our dark sky sites, we are helping reclaim places where Milky Way is becoming visible again, proving that natural darkness still has a place in modern life. The movement is still growing, of course, but its message is clear. Progress and preservation can coexist. With thoughtful design, lighting design, lights can meet human needs without wiping the stars away from our sky. So how does lighting design really work nowadays? Most of the lighting in our homes we choose are chosen long before we move in by developers, by architects, by even sometimes dedicated lighting designers on those projects. During renovations, people may hire professionals or simply rely on electricians their contractors recommend. Yet far more than we realize, we are the final decision makers. Homeowners routinely approve, reject, and swap out fixtures, meaning our preferences directly shape what gets installed inside and outside our houses. From nearly a decade working as a lighting designer, I can tell you this. Many fixtures are specified because designers receive incentives and samples or commissions from lighting companies. Profit making and marketing and aesthetics frequently drive decisions more than sustainability or environmental impact. That's not to say, that doesn't mean that designers don't care. A lot of us do. Many genuinely try to make responsible choices for their clients and themselves. But the industry pressures are sometimes very real, and they influence the lighting around us in ways most people can never see. So what can we really do about it on an individual level? We could probably push back whenever we can when overly bright or poorly designed lighting is proposed for your home or project. Ask your designers or contractors how the selected fixtures impact sky glow and the nocturnal environment. Request warmer color temperatures, full cutoff fixtures, shielded outdoor lightings. If something seems unnecessarily bright and visually harsh, question why it's being recommended. Choose fixtures that reduce glare and prevent light trespass, and avoid options that contribute to pollution. Remember, our money and our questions influence the industry decisions more than we think. So when you go home tonight, and if you pause even for a second before switch on and switch off a light, and if you find yourself questioning whether it's a good lighting or a bad lighting, then a part of this, the purpose of this presentation would have been achieved. And if that moment happens, I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to chat about anything about lighting, or even want to just vent about your neighbor's lighting, which is trespassing in your property, please email me. That's my email. Thank you.
Whoa. Thank you, Chetna, for your very informative presentation on lighting. And we often take lighting for advantage and not think about the impact on the dark. And as we know, light is, at nighttime, the enemy of what we're trying to do on the astronomy side. So, Paul, I was just going to think, how are we doing for time?
You're doing very well.
Okay, so I think I'll just go through this one quickly and then we'll take a break. Okay, benefits. Sorry, I'm just going to raise this up a bit to get rid of some of that feedback. And Chris, maybe we can dial down the gain a little bit. All right, Ottawa RAFC memberships. There's a lot more to our center than the meetings you see here today. The Royal Astronomical Society, of course, has been around for a very long time. And you think of people like Isaac Newton and Stephen Hawking. You're joining a very interesting and illustrious organization. But the big part of it, of course, is all the people you get to know, all the other amateur astronomers, and the information you get to share, and some of the trips you go on, and some of the adventures you have. It's really quite something. And so if you're thinking about membership, I would strongly recommend that you really do think about membership. We have a number of facilities and other things that are available to members. And the first, of course, is the Ted Bean Loan Library, which is a library of telescopes. And so especially for beginning astronomers, this gives you the opportunity to try out different equipment, use it for a while, try something else out, before you decide to make that first major purchase on the telescope side. We have the Stan Mott Library with Estelle, who's been our librarian for 17 years, and just this will be our last year where Estelle's our librarian, so we're looking for a volunteer. We have a large library of excellent material, reading material and support material for your astronomy journey. And of course, the Fred Lossing Observatory at the Mill of Kintail, southwest of Almont. There are 3 large telescopes there. We also have mounts and electrical outlets for people who bring their own equipment. And we have a small building there where you can work from inside if you're using the telescopes remotely, which in the wintertime, of course, is a wonderful thing. Other membership goodies, of course, is our monthly Astronotes, the RASC Journal, which is bi-monthly and very nerdy if you're down for that. And every year you get the new Observer's Handbook from the Royal Astronomical Society, which has every technical reference you could probably ever want to set up and use your telescope. To join, go to the website, www.rasc.ca, and as part of the enrollment process, you would select the Ottawa Centre as your local centre. Other membership goodies, we have a Discord server. It's really quite great. A lot of the members are posting some really great astro photos that they've taken onto the Discord server, and a lot of communication goes on that. It's a really great price. As well, the RASC Ottawa gets the Astrospheric Pro Access weather prediction software. And so that's a $66 value if you wanted to buy that yourself. You get it free as part of your membership. Memberships itself costs $118 a year, which is basically dinner out once. Family membership, $112.50, and then $18 for every adult, and $10.50 for every youth in the family. And youth membership, if you're under 21 years old or under 25, if you're a student, is $77.40 a year. All right, we're going to take a short break. We're doing well for time. Just a reminder, the rest of the museum is closed. We had an astronomer get sucked into a jet engine a number of years back and took us 3 days to pull him out. So they don't like us wandering around the museum at night. So maybe we'll take about 10 minutes and we'll meet back here and finish the second part of our presentation tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we're all settled on the calendar.
So what's the story on the calendar?
Some folks are will e-transfer to the treasurer. I don't know. Some people don't do e-transfers. I do them all the time. Every day. So last night when people were buying the calendars, they said, "Oh, I don't have any cash." And I said, "Well, do an e-transfer. Do it to me. Then I know the money's gone in. Rather than having look at did you get it? Okay. So that's what I did. And then put my own cash in. That and my cash. Whatever I do, whatever to do, get it done.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's a good calendar.
Yeah. Oh well.
So they sold out pretty quick because you were sitting there with a stack and it was like,
Oh yeah. I keep saying, for your wife. You haven't got your wife anything for Christmas here.
roll it up and stuff it in the stocking. Yep. So I was standing on my tiptoes. Yeah, it's right here. Up, down. I'm not going to play with the other buttons.
brave enough to try.
I'm not going to play with the other buttons. I don't know what they do. They're not labeled, so. Two-minute warning, everyone. If you can take your seats, please. Thank you. Seats, please. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll get the house lights down here in a second. We'll carry on with the second part of our public meeting this evening. I'll be doing a presentation. Woohoo! All right, we're introducing a fun new semi-regular presentation that you're going to see from time to time, which we're calling Frontiers of Astronomy. We've all been here. And this is probably a big reason why we've gotten into astronomy. Out on a beautiful summer night, away from the city lights, looking up at the stars, looking with amazement at how beautiful it is in the Milky Way, and as we've gotten out from the city, being able to see so much in the sky. And that's led to a sense of wonder. The wonder of what might be out there. And all those questions starting to instill a sense of curiosity, which drives one to explore and look for answers. And so the section on Frontiers of Astronomy is going to be about that. It's a new presentation we're going to do on a semi-regular basis, maybe the first one in February, that's really aimed at some of our newer members, but will also have content for our much more seasoned members as well. Not a lot of math, but a lot of discussion on topics that drive your curiosity, that may create more questions than answers, and help bring back some of that wonder as we look into the night sky. So what I'm going to do tonight is a bit of a teaser trailer on some of the topics that I'll be covering off in the year and a half ahead. And these are just ideas, and I'm looking for feedback and looking to hear what you might think is something you really want to hear about. So let me get into it. One of the ones I'm looking at originally is the Hubble and James Webb Space Telescopes. Together, they've advanced our knowledge of cosmology tremendously. The Hubble telescope launched in 1990, still in service today, has really opened our eyes into deep space. And with the launch of the James Webb telescope in 2021, we're taking other leaps ahead. And some of those leaps ahead are really questioning some of our basic theories around cosmology. We're starting to wonder, is the Big Bang Theory correct? Why are we seeing some of the things that don't fit our mathematical and scientific models? What's going on out there? To give you an idea of just how much more powerful the James Webb is compared to the Hubble, this is a picture of the pillars of creation. The Hubble telescope took the one on the left. James Webb took the one on the right. So as the technology advances, it raises more questions than it does answers, but gives us the opportunity to think outside the box, and to ask more questions. Another session I'm looking at doing is Frontiers for Beginners. We have, as we saw earlier, over 100 new members this past year, which is absolutely fantastic. And so I want to devote a session to what it is to be a new amateur astronomer, to talk about things like, what should be the first new telescope I buy when I go out there? How do I find my way around the night sky? What are some of the big constellations? Where do I find the Andromeda Galaxy? Pleiades, where's that? What is some of the reference material I should be looking at, whether I sign it out from our library as part of Ottawa Centre or go out and buy it myself? What are the kinds of reference material I need as a new astronomer? And of course, what kind of software and apps are out there to really help me along? Because there is some really great stuff. And so I'm looking forward to doing this one for all our new beginners. Advancements in digital astronomy. I'm going to do a session on the C-Star S30, which was our door prize at our dinner the other night, or last month, I should say. I actually purchased one of these myself a few months ago, and wow. Talk about power being put into the hands of the amateur astronomer. With this, we can simply now image some deep sky objects. This is Andromeda, what you're seeing, and do something called stacking, which I had no idea existed up until a few months ago, where a piece of equipment will take a picture over and over and over and over again, and then put them all together, process them, line them up, and build that image as something so faint that you can barely see it with your eyes, but you end up with a beautiful picture. The Sea Star I found to be, the setup was a little bit interesting, but once set up is amazing to use. It really makes it easy for the amateur astronomer. For under $1,000 now, you can take beautiful, beautiful pictures of the night sky and really deepen your understanding of some of the deep sky objects out there. Another presentation I'd like to do, of course, is the moon, our cosmic backyard. Since the beginning of humanity, we have wondered and looked at the moon as it's transited through the sky. And it's always been a question mark in so many ways. And then as we got closer to the moon through various probes and the Apollo missions, we learned so much more, especially around the geology of the moon. But it's created a lot of questions too, and there are lots of things about the moon we don't know, even to this day, as science progresses. And as we return to the moon as part of the space program and look at creating a permanent establishment on the moon, potentially, what does this mean for Earth? For the first time in our history, we will be living on another celestial body. What I'm really looking forward to doing is something I'm calling the alien fascination, because from the absurd to the I don't know what to say to that one, aliens form a big part of our culture. You can make a whole television channel basically devoted to it. Wait a minute, I think the History Channel is. But let's talk about the serious side. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence through radio telescopes. SETI has been an effort for a very long time, back into the 1970s with the big WOW signal at Ohio State University. But today we are looking in so many different ways. Is there life out there? Whether it's microbes on asteroids, Mars, maybe even the moon, to exoplanets that we're seeing not only originally from Hubble, but now from James Webb. We're starting to realize that all those stars out there, a lot of them have planets too. And so the big question that we've always tried to answer, are we alone in this universe, or is there life out there? Another one, the space race, past, present, and future. Since the 1950s and the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, which is basically a beeper in space, which drove the Americans nuts during the space race, to the race to get people into space. And, of course, landing on the moon, which we did in the 60s and 70s and haven't been back since. But the space race continues through multiple space stations, Skylab, the Soviet ones, Chinese ones, to the International Space Station, which has been up since, I've got it written down here somewhere, the 1990s, right? And we're looking to go back to the moon and beyond, and even to landing on our nearest other neighboring planet, the red planet, which may actually happen in the lifetime of some of these people in the room. Maybe happen even closer than we think, right? The space race has been an interesting one. What has been nations is now a larger degree now shifting to corporations. And so I'll be talking about that. One of the other ones I'm looking at is one that is a very worthy one, and it's to boldly go where no one has gone before, the Voyager probes. Think about this for a minute. Voyager 1 and 2 were launched in 1977, okay, 48 years ago. Voyager 1, of course, taking excellent pictures of Jupiter, Saturn, Titan, and then heading off into deep space, and Voyager 2 visiting all the gas giants in the outer system. And now they are both 48 years later drifting off into deep space and still talking to us after 48 years. I think there's a joke about marriage in here, about talking about after 48 years. Maybe I won't go there. But they've expanded the knowledge of our solar system by so much, and now they're Voyagers into interstellar space. So with all of these, I'm going to ask you to bring your curiosity, because I will leave you with more questions than answers. But that's what Inquiring Minds is all about, because that's how science moves forward, is by asking questions and thinking about stuff and wondering with amazement and curiosity. Because at the end of the day, the truth is out there, but it's up to us to find it. So any thoughts, feedback you have on some of the topics I've listed here going forward in the new year that I'll be fleshing out more detail, or even other stuff you want to see, don't be afraid to reach out to me, Jonathan King at ottawa.rasc.ca. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our observation reports. We have four astronomers are going to bring us our observation reports this month. And the first one up is Jim. Come on down, Jim.
Well, greetings. Let's see what we got here. Here is a familiar sight, M42, the Orion Nebula, a stellar nursery 1,500 light years away, located just below Orion's belt. M42 is the closest star-forming region to Earth. So, off the south balcony here in the city, I set up the William Optics 81mm refractor and Malenkamp Skyraider camera with the Antlia 3 nanometer filter. I took 1,000 frames, stacked them in auto-stackered, and post-processed them, the image, in Topaz Studio 2 and Affinity Photo 2. And I really like the way the light illuminates the surrounding gas, but the core could have been less saturated a bit. Anyway, there we go. And here is a solar animation taken off the same south balcony. Is it moving? It's moving very slowly, but nevertheless, the prominence in the middle is a huge one, giving off plasma mostly in the left direction. And it's really, I found it to be really an interesting interplay of energy that may resemble a lifelike image to the creative mind. And I think some people in the audience may know what that means. This is a recurrent animation, and it represents 60 minutes, 60-minute time period. Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, Taras, I'm on to your first slide. Taras, why don't you come on down?
Hello everyone. So this year for me was year of Saturn, who never disappoints an observer with its constantly changing image. Picture on the screen was taken July 26 with FLO's Star Master during a night of good seeing conditions. What's special about it was the combination of angles that define direction of sunlight, rings tilt, and our point of view, which resulted in seeing the unlit side of the rings. It probably have to use the flashlight. It looks darker in the picture, but it would be still quite bright for an observer who looks at the planet through the telescope. So the rings were lit from underneath, and that's why the part which we see, it's much darker. Let's go to the next slide. Not sure if it works. Oh, I think it's too much this time. Other events which sparkled excitement in 2025 was the Titan Shadow Transit. This event is cyclical and occurs in series, which started November 4th, 2024 actually, when the shadow was grazed what looks like from our perspective the planet's southern pole, but so on this picture it would have been somewhere here that time. But it was difficult to observe it back then because of its duration and timing. It was mostly taking place during the day hours, and the first opportunity to observe it was about June 16 that year, last year. However, it was not until, sorry, I'm mistaken, until June 16 this year. But it was not until August 3rd when I had chance to image it with 18-inch Star Master and my monochrome planetary camera. So this time lapse is from FLO Observatory, and it covers about 45 minutes of the shadow transit. And this picture is the result of stacking 5 video sequences taken through LRGB plus infrared filter, taken the same night. And you can see that Saturn Moon Titan is upper left somewhere here, and the shadow goes this way because this is the way the sunlight was heading that night. Now, the orbital period of Titan's rotation, orbital rotation around Saturn is 16 days. So the next opportunity to image the transit was August 19th, and I missed it. However, another 16 days later, on September 4th, there was another transit, but our skies in Ottawa were covered with clouds. The closest location with more or less clear skies was Salaberry-de-Valleyfield, suburb of Montreal, where I went to with my 8-inch Schmidt-Cass and the color planetary camera. I found a place with wide open view to the southeast, on the shore of St. Lawrence River, but smaller aperture, wind, bad seeing, and some other factors resulted in much lower time-lapse quality, although I still wanted to share this with you. I think it's a bit too dark probably, but I hope you see it well. And again, this same night as before, I used the filters and monochrome camera to take the sequential sequence of videos which I stacked and combined into LRGB image that you see on the screen. You can see that the moon is much closer to the planet this time, while the shadow raises up towards the North Pole. So the moon is here, the shadow is much closer to the pole. Another 16 days later, a trip to FLO. This time, color planetary camera was used with observatory's 14-inch Meade Schmidt-Cass. This time lapse covers more than an hour of imaging. The seeing was variable. You can see some individual frames show a bit more details. But what's strange is that the shadow looks double or almost double in this image or time lapse. And there is no, this time, Titan visible at all near the planet. And the answer to that was clear after I took some stationary image, same idea as the previous times. And after it got processed, it showed that what looked like a lower part of this double shadow is actually Titan itself. So just the moon was not bright enough, and it was about the same brightness, or sorry, rather even darker than planet's surface, and therefore it appeared as a double shadow. The shadow itself is much closer to the pole, as you see, so 16 days even after that, later, it would have been just grazing the pole, and probably it wouldn't be a really big event to image, and I skipped on it. And now with this sequence of, or rather series of transits, the next favorable moment for that will be April 8, 2054. So it will be quite a long time to wait for that to happen again. Another event that some of us eagerly eagerly expected during our last RSC party at FLO, which was November 22nd, was Titan's transit above Saturn's surface. So not the shadow, but the moon itself was transiting the surface. Also, one of the moons, Rhea, was expected to show up from behind the planet and traverse almost exactly in the same plane where the rings are, and the best timing for that was around 6 o'clock. But alas, clouds prevented us from observing this event. My attempts to image the planets through the opening between the clouds were futile. It was not until 9:50 p.m. when the clouds eventually parted, and I was able to take this picture with 18-inch Star Master. Probably was first light for this telescope after the mirror was recoated by Rick Scholz and the telescope was recollimated by Matt Weeks. The view of the planet through the telescope was amazing. Thank you, Rick and Matt. The image in the lower portion is the same as above, but I stretched the histograms so to show the 5 of the brightest Saturn's moons, including quite dim Enceladus, which is somewhere here. There is a conjunction, occultation of Dione and Rhea here, Titan, and Thetis, if I'm not mistaken. Using a rare opportunity of suddenly improved seeing, I also imaged Uranus that night, who was very close to its opposition. Even with Barlow use, the image was quite good and the planet looked like a disk. I used infrared filter as well that revealed this brighter area here. And I used that to combine with visual part of the image. So that brighter area is facing us under angle. You can see more clearly it on the picture on the right, as I mentioned. It's known as a polar cape or hood, and it's Uranus's most consistent bright feature, which appears over the pole facing the sun. Because Uranus is tilted on its side, each pole experiences decades of continuous sunlight, leading the unique seasonal changes. And of course, I could not have missed the chance to image the King of the Planets the same night. This image was taken around 12:30 a.m. when the planet was southeast and almost 50 degrees high. This position, in combination with good seeing, allowed me to capture some finer details of Jovian's surface. The planet is rising earlier these days. It's straight to the east around 10 p.m., 30 degrees altitude, and will be rising as high as 65 degrees around 2:30 these days, giving us best chance to see it without being affected too much by bad seeing conditions. Our only expectations would be to have the clear skies. Thank you.
Paul, you're up next.
Well, hello again. Just got a few images for you tonight. November was certainly a bit of a challenging month for doing some clear sky work. Most of the clear nights were in sync with the full or near full moon, so it takes what you can get. I was out actually on the evening of Remembrance Day, November the 11th, and I was actually just doing some stuff in my backyard in the evening there when I noticed that the sky was brightening in an odd way. It was mostly overcast, but there was this light coming in from the northeast, which isn't usually there, and within a span of just a few minutes, it turned into an auroral display, and a significant one. This generated auroras into very southerly latitudes, places like Florida and other places near the equator. It was the result of two CMEs colliding and interacting with our magnetic field. So even though it was cloudy, I could see this brightening in the sky there, and I thought, what's going on here? I knew there was something cooking in terms of potential CMEs, but I'd written off the night because it was supposed to be totally overcast. What happened was, out in my way, about 20 odd kilometers southwest of FLO, I got a sucker hole that was just passing by, and I should have thrown more images in tonight, but it generated a beautiful aurora. There was stuff like this coronal aurora coming in overhead, bright red streamers and green, but it lasted for like 20 minutes. 25 minutes, and then it started clouding over again. So I had a few good shots like this. You can see the Pleiades almost near the crest of the, see if I can get the laser going there. The Pleiades there, and Aldebaran and Taurus down there. I think, can we see Orion? No, Orion's just out of the field. And it was beautiful, and it was changing so quickly. It was just amazing. And then the clouds started rolling in, and it was mostly a red aurora, and actually turned out to be kind of a spooky looking night that night. It would have been great for Halloween, because as the clouds moved in, the red seemed to intensify, and this is what I was seeing in my backyard. It was crazy. The low-lying clouds that were moving in were all being illuminated by the red auroras on their top side, and streaming through like red flames across the sky. It was really cool. 5 minutes after that, though, it was so thick, though, that all I saw was a diffuse red glow of the aurora there. So had that been a clear night, it would have been, I think, a display comparable to what we had back in May, when we had that amazing aurora that was horizon to horizon. So yeah, just a lucky capture that I happened to be out there. I probably wouldn't have noticed it otherwise, but yeah, got some interesting views for sure. And our projector seems very dark, Chris. I think we'll have to look at that. This it seems very dark. I've noticed that over a few of the last images. All right. After the aurora, well, I also had opportunity, not so much this time, but I merged a few shots that I got of this region with stuff that I'd shot before, and this is up in Auriga, and we had our challenge objects of 3 Messier clusters up in Auriga last month from Richard. What you see at the top here is one of them, but this whole Auriga region, when you get a clear night, this is well worth the look. This is a wide field view. This was taken with just a 200 millimeter lens and my Canon 70D, and I've labeled the objects that you can see here. This is just a super rich area for imaging, and I tossed in the picture of the moon just to show you the scale of this view there. So you can see there's quite a wide angle there, and as I said, 200 millimeter lens. So very rewarding area there, and you can hit it with higher magnification and really get into some very cool detail in the IC objects that you see there. All right. Then there's this guy. So as you've known since, if you were here at all in the summer with our presentations, this is a comet I've been following since its discovery in early July. This is only the third known interstellar object that's crept into our solar system. This is Comet 3I Atlas, and it was discovered early in July. I think it was the 6th of July. I was able to image it 4 days afterwards when we did get a clear sky, and that if you remember those presentations, it's a blip. It was a blip of light moving across the sky. That was because it was still out by the orbit of Jupiter when it was discovered, and when I was able to capture these first few views. Its magnitude at that point in time was something on the order of plus 17.5, so very dim, very small. This image that I took here is actually just from a couple of weeks ago. We couldn't see it from Earth for most of October and into the early part of November, because it was on the other side of the sun. But as it rounded the sun, and we started getting views of it just a couple of weeks ago in early November, and its magnitude had grown considerably, up from 17.5 to around just under 8. So a substantial increase in its brightness. Again, the night that I had for shooting this wasn't extremely good, but it was one of the few in November that was available, because this object was just rising shortly before the break of dawn. And from my place, basically, this was just above the tree level. I think I had about a 15-minute window before the start of dawn there. So, and there were clouds. But as you can see, it's quite a contrast there. And despite what you might have heard on the internet about it potentially being an alien spacecraft, it looks pretty much like a comet to me. So, and to most other folks. And on the image, I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, because it's a little dark there, but you can see coming from the central area of the comet up towards the upper right corner, there's just the hints of a blue tail there. And for astrophotographers in more favorable locations that were able to do much deeper exposure, the tail has actually grown to a fair length. So it's been an interesting comet to look at. And I hope to get a couple more images there. It is dimming again now. It peaked at around magnitude 8 or so. It's down, I think, about magnitude 10 now. So it is dropping as it begins its journey back out of our solar system. So it's been an interesting and challenging target to follow, especially in the summer months where it was really just one dot amongst many. Yeah, it was a good hunt. The other comet that caught a lot of attention in November is this guy. This is comet C 2025 K1 Atlas, another Atlas comet. Not an interstellar one, but this comet was put on a fairly nice show back in October, so it wasn't super bright or anything. Reached a magnitude of about 7.7, I believe it was. But what happened in early November? So again, just about 3 weeks ago, observers started seeing the thing fragment, like it was breaking up basically after it did its closest approach to the sun. And fortunately, I did have one clear night on November the 20th when I was able to bag this thing, and you can see 3 of the main fragments here. Just down here, there were basically the main body had fractured itself, and these 3 large boulders basically were just moving through space together. I was hoping to do a sequence. Once I saw that I could get this thing, and because again, it's not super bright or anything at this point in time, I was hoping to get a sequence where I could see them spread apart in that. But within days of taking this picture, apparently the lesser fragments that broke off basically shut off. They disintegrated, or they continued to be pulverized and just contribute to the dust tail. So it's dropped about 2.5 magnitudes since I took this image on November the 20th, and continues to drop. I'm still hoping to get a farewell shot of it there, so we'll see what happens. This is an interesting comet, though, not just for the fragmentation. This is only the second time I've been able to image a comet fragmenting like that. But it's also an unusual comet for its color. This was referred to as the golden comet. Most of the comets that we see in the sky, including our interstellar visitor, tend to be greenish blue. That's the norm. This has become known as the golden comet because it was predominantly yellow. And for reasons unknown, this body seems to be rather depleted in carbon compounds, which are what would help to generate the green and bluish colors that you see in most comets. So we don't really understand why that happened, but it definitely cast a more golden look, not only to its central bright area, but out to the tail as well there. So an interesting body to study. And hopefully I'll get a couple more shots to see if any fragments broke off. I know there was one report after I shot this of a 4th fragment that had broken off, smaller, but again, it dissipated within a couple of days, so don't know where it's at right now. Thank you very much.
All right, moving along, Richard. And you're also going to do the challenges for next month, right?
Okay, as others have said, this has not been a great month for the weather, so I didn't get the chances I was hoping to take pictures of the targets in Araga. However, I did get out one night on the 18th of November, and then I found there was another problem. Araga was rising right up through the hydro wires in my backyard. So again, I didn't get much of a chance to use my telescope, which is on a pier that's in a fixed location. And I did have a chance, though, to get a picture of the constellation as a whole, because I put a new camera and zoom lens on a portable tripod and pushed it right up against the house, and then I could get a clear view of the constellation. So it's a fairly big constellation and somewhat pentagonal shaped. Let me just see if we got here. Yeah. So there's the brightest star, Capella, and then the constellation goes around here. Well, actually, I have the next picture. There we go. And I was still fiddling with this new camera and the telephoto lens, so I didn't quite zoom out far enough to get the other star in the peak of the pentagon there. However, the three Messier clusters are bright enough that they show up in binoculars very easily. They show up in a simple telephoto on a camera. This is no tracking, no guiding, no nothing. It's just a 6-second exposure. And you can definitely see the three Messier objects there. And this is the same photograph, but zoomed in and rotated so that you can see M37, M36, and M38. Really lovely, lovely place in the sky to explore with binoculars. And then if you have a camera and can take a nice wide field, as Paul showed us, that there's a lot of nebulosity in here as well, but you need longer exposures for that. So I didn't get any other pictures of the nebulosity, but I've pulled up an older photograph from last actually February 2024. And this shows a closer view of the Flaming Star Nebula. Now, I used a camera with a very narrow field of view here, so the actual nebula extends way up in a sort of a comma shaped here. So this is only the brightest part around that fairly bright star. And as I mentioned last month, the star there is actually a renegade from the trapezium area. It's moving quite rapidly, and we think that a few million years ago it actually was formed in Orion in the M42. Now, I did manage to get on that same evening a picture of Saturn. Not quite as good as Taras, but you can again see the shadow of the rings going across the center. And very, very faintly you can see just a little bit of the rings on either side. But as Paul also mentioned, I think the screen is pretty dark tonight. So I have posted these on the Discord server, so if you want to take another look, that's where they are. Okay, moving along to next month. Okay, these are the ones for this last month. The constellation of Araga, the line of the three open clusters, the Flaming Star Nebula. Now, I didn't get pictures of the spider and fly yet, so I still challenge myself to find those. And there is another piece of nebulosity that I don't think anybody in our club has taken a picture of, but I did see some pictures online. And I think I'll just leave that up there as a ongoing challenge if you get a chance throughout the rest of the winter of taking pictures of the very, very faint nebulosity in Araga.
We did have quite a few pictures on the Discord server, so congratulations to Mark and Xavier and Tony, and of course Taras has shown us his lovely pictures of Saturn throughout the year. So for the next month, I decided to choose the constellation of Cetus. If you look towards the south, right now, around 9 p.m., it's at its highest point, but it is a fairly southerly constellation, so it will never get very high in the sky. But it is a very interesting constellation for a number of objects it contains. The brighter stars, the one that you'll probably find most easily, is this one here. And it's in a kind of circle shape, very similar to the circlet of Pisces over here. But it's a bit bigger, and the stars are actually brighter, so that should be an easy part to find. And it's the highest part above the horizon. Another interesting star in Cetus is this star Mira here, which is another example of a kind of what do you call it, a variable star that sets the stage for others of the kind. So Mira is quite different from the Cepheid variables that we talked about previously. Mira variables are very slow to change brightness, but they change over a very enormous range of magnitudes. So Mira is sometimes quite easily visible to the naked eye, magnitude 2, and then it gradually fades out over months and diminishes to magnitude 10, and then brightens again. So Mira is also known as the Wonderful. It is quite an amazing star if you watch it over a very long period of time. So anyway, see if you can find it. As I say, I think the thing to look for would be this circle and then the stars leading down. You probably won't see Mira this month because I believe it's at about magnitude 6 right now, but you might be able to spot it in binoculars or a telescope. And then there are another bright star down here, which is very low in the south, but that's a good place to start looking for the other challenge objects this month. I've chosen 3 of them. M77 is a fairly interesting galaxy, a face-on spiral. And then there's another NGC galaxy, NGC 1055, which is an edge-on spiral. And you could probably capture both of those at once. And then down here, there are a couple of the Caldwell objects. Caldwell 62 is another edge-on galaxy, quite a large one with a very interesting shape. And Caldwell 56 here is a planetary nebula, very faint, somewhat circular, but with a piece missing from it. So it's actually sometimes called another Pac-Man nebula, and not the one we've seen up in the north, but very low in the south, a kind of circle with a missing piece. So those are your challenges for this month. As I say, they're all fairly deep in the south, but fairly early in the evening as well. So don't leave it till too late. And then for the solar system object, I thought it was about time to look back at the moon. I haven't seen very many pictures posted on the Discord server recently of the moon, but one thing I did see was somebody asking for help in how do you actually get a good picture of the moon. So I think this might be a good time to have some discussion about that. The nice part about the moon right now is that it's opposite to the sun. So when the sun is low in the sky, the moon is high in the sky. And so you'll see it really, really high during this month and next month. And it will be quite easy to observe. And the seeing will be very good when it's high in the sky. Try taking a picture of it. There's many ways of doing it. Any camera can take a picture of the moon, because it's as bright as a sunlit beach. So that's the kind of setting you should use if you're looking for what exposure, what settings on your camera, just like you would on a sunlit beach. And that will give you a nice image of the moon. So short exposures, you can use a small aperture as well to help you get a wider range of field of the focus on it. And any kind of magnification you've got, a telephoto lens, a zoom camera, or a telescope, or you can even try holding your cell phone up to a pair of binoculars. Try things out. This is your chance to really get some ideas about how you can get into this field of astrophotography. And I'd love to see some new people trying out pictures of the moon. And share your ideas, share what works. What do you do with it? What settings do you use? What kind of equipment do you use? And what do you do afterwards? How do you process the pictures to make them really sharp and nice contrast? So let's see some discussion of that, and I hope you have a very some clear skies for the next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We're going to zoom through the rest because we're running a bit over. Estelle's pick of the month is astronomical sketching, a step-by-step introduction. Fred Lossing Observatory, we talked about that earlier. For the members out at the Milliken Tail, our 3 telescopes out there, as well as various mounts for people who bring their own telescopes. Star parties for the members only at the Fred Lossing Observatory. Next one's on December 20th, which is a waxing crescent moon. Club information, Flow Director Richard Scholes. The librarian position is open. Ted Bean, Equipment Loan Library, Peter Schut. Coffee and Conversation position is open. And membership info, Art Fraser. Thank you, everyone, for attending this evening, both members and the public. I don't have the numbers here. That's a typo up there, but it's 82 people tonight attending. And of course, the listing of all the organizers and speakers, thank you very much for all those who presented this evening. Our host, the RASC National Office and Zoom, and any comments and ideas, please send to meetingchair@ottawa.rasc.ca. Our next meeting, 2026, Friday, January 9th at 7:30 p.m., same place. And just a reminder, the museums are closed. And thank you, everyone. And that closes our session for tonight, for December.